In this episode of the PBD Podcast, host Patrick Bet-David interviews Charlie Kirk, a prominent conservative political commentator and founder of Turning Point USA. The podcast covers a range of topics including the recent conflict between Israel and Hamas, the crisis at the US-Mexico border, and the motivations behind certain billionaire elite support for left-wing ideologies. The conversation begins with a discussion about the recent conflict between Israel and Hamas. Charlie Kirk highlights the severity of the situation, describing it as the closest thing to the Holocaust that the world has seen in recent times. He criticizes the response of some American citizens, particularly students at universities, who have expressed support for Hamas and blamed Israel for the violence. Kirk emphasizes the need to recognize the moral implications of the conflict and questions how such a toxic ideology has infiltrated American society. The conversation then shifts to the crisis at the US-Mexico border. Kirk shares alarming statistics about the number of special interest illegal aliens who have entered the US undetected, including individuals from countries that pose national security threats. He questions why the border has been left wide open and suggests that there may be a deliberate plan to allow these individuals into the country. Kirk argues that the Democratic Party sees political advantage in allowing third-world immigrants into the U.S., despite the fact that these individuals often hold values that are contrary to liberal ideologies. Bet-David and Kirk then delve into the motivations behind certain billionaire elite support for left-wing ideologies. Kirk suggests that some of these individuals, such as George Soros and Laurene Powell Jobs, hold an ideological belief that borders, private property, and America itself are the problems that need to be eliminated. He argues that they see themselves as the masters of the universe who can reconfigure society through technocracy and create a utopian world without borders or private property. Kirk also suggests that some billionaires support left-wing causes simply to align themselves with the winning side and protect their own interests. The conversation takes a darker turn as the hosts discuss the possibility of intentional actions and hidden motives behind recent events. They question whether the recent conflict in Israel was intentionally orchestrated to create chaos and increase the chances of re-election for certain political leaders. They also speculate about the motives of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, suggesting that he may be using the conflict as an opportunity to eliminate Hamas and solidify his own power. The hosts raise questions about the intelligence failures and the possibility of a stand-down order during the conflict. Kirk emphasizes the need for caution and precision in Israel's response to the conflict. He urges Israel to seek justice and revenge for the lives lost but warns against overreacting and potentially engaging in ethnic cleansing. He also highlights the importance of distinguishing between the actions of terrorist organizations like Hamas and the broader Muslim population, as well as the need to address the persecution of Christians around the world. The conversation continues with a discussion about the recent conflict between Israel and Palestine. Charlie Kirk explains that the situation is complex and that there are different dynamics at play in the West Bank and Gaza. He mentions that Hamas has significant support in Gaza, while in the West Bank, the support is lower. He also highlights the importance of understanding the historical context and the potential consequences of any actions taken in the region. The conversation then shifts to the Iran nuclear deal and the role of the United States in the region. Charlie Kirk argues that the U.S. played a significant role in radicalizing Iran by intervening in its politics in the 1950s. He suggests that the U.S. should be cautious in its approach to Iran and avoid escalating tensions further. He also emphasizes the need to focus on the larger threat posed by China and the Chinese Communist Party. Bet-David and Charlie Kirk discuss the potential consequences of a conflict with Iran. They both agree that war with Iran would not be in the best interest of the United States. They criticize the hawkish rhetoric of some politicians, such as Lindsey Graham, who have advocated for military action against Iran. They also discuss the importance of energy independence and how increasing domestic oil production can weaken Iran's influence. The conversation then turns to the topic of leadership and the role of gangsters in politics. Charlie Kirk references Niccolò Machiavelli's book The Prince and argues that both the left and the right can learn from its insights on political power. He suggests that a strong leader who is feared, respected, and liked can be effective in governing a country. He also criticizes the media for their biased coverage and their focus on personal attacks rather than substantive policy debates. The discussion then moves to the controversy surrounding Aaron Rodgers and Travis Kelce's vaccine debate on ESPN. Charlie Kirk defends Rodgers and criticizes ESPN for highlighting the debate and promoting vaccine-related theories that have been widely debunked. He suggests that ESPN's financial ties to pharmaceutical companies may influence their coverage of the issue. Bet David and Charlie Kirk expressed their willingness to pay a significant amount of money for a 3-hour debate between Anthony Fauci and RFK Jr. on the topic of vaccines. They argue that such a debate would be informative and allow for a thorough examination of the evidence. However, they both acknowledge that Fauci would likely never agree to participate in such a debate due to his ties to pharmaceutical companies and the potential consequences for his reputation. The conversation continues with a discussion about the influence of pharmaceutical companies on the media. Charlie Kirk highlights the significant amount of money that these companies spend on advertising and suggests that this financial relationship may influence media coverage of vaccines and other health-related topics. He argues that if media outlets stopped accepting money from pharmaceutical companies, it could lead to more balanced and objective reporting. The conversation then shifts to the race for House Speaker in the Republican Party, with Kirk discussing the potential candidates and their visions for the role. He expresses his preference for Jim Jordan over Steve Scalise, citing Scalise's health issues and moderate stance as reasons for his preference. Kirk also criticizes Scalise for backing Liz Cheney in the primary in Wyoming and his stance on Ukraine. The conversation then delves into the challenges of being Speaker of the House, including the need to travel extensively, raise funds, and recruit candidates. Kirk questions whether Scalise would be able to handle these responsibilities while battling cancer. He also expresses concerns about the slim majority in the House and the need for a strong conservative leader. The discussion then turns to the personal dynamics between Matt Gaetz and Kevin McCarthy, with Kirk suggesting that Gaetz's push to remove McCarthy as Speaker was personal. He also discusses the role of moderate Republicans in the party and their desire for a more moderate Speaker. Kirk believes that McCarthy's failure to hold the line on certain issues led to his loss of the speakership. The conversation then shifts to the potential for Gaetz to become Speaker of the House. Kirk expresses doubts about Gaetz's ability to lead and suggests that Jordan would be a better choice. He also discusses the challenges facing House Republicans and the need for them to fulfill the mandate given to them by their voters. Kirk emphasizes the importance of addressing issues such as Ukraine funding, the border, and government spending. The discussion then takes a surprising turn as Kirk brings up a story about California banning Skittles. He finds it ironic that California, a state known for its progressive values, would ban a popular candy. The conversation then returns to the topic of the Speaker race and the potential presidential implications of the debate between DeSantis and Noem. Kirk believes that DeSantis is unlikely to win the nomination and suggests that he should focus on being a great governor instead. The conversation continues with a discussion of the situation in Israel and the rise of antisemitism. Kirk criticizes Mia Khalifa, a former porn star, for praising Hamas and their actions against Israel. He points out the hypocrisy of her stance, given that Hamas would likely harm her if she were to visit Palestine. Kirk also expresses disappointment in the support for Hamas among American Muslims and calls for empathy and understanding on both sides of the conflict. The guest suggests that if there was an American president who was not a traitor, they would intervene and mediate a solution. He proposes that the American president should visit the Middle East and hold a joint press conference with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, as well as other Arab leaders sympathetic to Israel. The goal would be to form an agreement to take action against Hamas, as the guest claims that Arab leaders secretly dislike the group due to its alignment with Iran. The guest emphasizes the importance of American leadership in resolving the conflict, citing former President Donald Trump's success in brokering the Abraham Accords and establishing peace agreements between Israel, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. He criticizes current President Joe Biden for not taking decisive action and allowing the violence to escalate. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe.